Hi folks, and welcome to the first day of Gi-Une here on the farm. My month-long salute and celebration to all things gin. Thank you very much for joining Som for All, that's me, as we embark on this 30-day journey. Now, if you're a gin lover, a gin hater, or even just a little bit curious about what all this fuss about gin is these days, then this here for the next 30 days is the place for you. I will add before we get started that we need to respect the rules of majority wherever you may live. So this is intended for a adult audience. So for example, I'm in Ontario. If you're not 19 years of age, then this really shouldn't be for you. But I thank you for the follow just the same. For everybody else that's of age where they live, let's move on. Over the next 30 days, we're going to be discussing some history, some fun facts, and I'll also be posting some videos of product tastings, as well as hosting my own live cocktail recipe, kind of through my own Som for All happy hour. So be sure to follow all my social media links to make sure that you don't miss any of it. And while you're at it, why not share with family and friends? I believe that everybody needs to learn more about gin, especially when they can have some fun doing it. And the more the merrier for the cocktail hour. So let's really make this an international happy hour. Well, maybe more like international 20-30 minutes, but you get the gist. Alrighty, so how do we start? Well, let's first quickly go over the schedule that Som for All, me, will be following for the month of Gi-Une. I'll be breaking the days of the week down into the following categories. On Mondays, I'll be posting fun facts. Tuesdays will be virtual product tasting. Wednesdays will be all about gin accompaniments. Thursdays will be another product tasting sample review. Fridays will be my live happy hour that I just mentioned, where I'll be making and discussing cocktail recipes using the products that I tasted that week. I'll also be answering questions from those of you that send me some throughout the week. So don't be shy to reach out with any gin-related questions. On Saturday, I'll be posting for suggested food pairings. Yes, gin can be very food-friendly. Sunday, well, for the most part, Sunday's my day of rest. And of course, I'll be listening to Larry Kerwin host Celtic Crush on Sirius XM, Channel 710 The Loft. That's my shameless plug for my friend Larry that has nothing to do with gin, but Irish gins are all the rage these days, as we'll discover throughout the month of June, and I'm sure that Larry would raise a glass or two to that. So my day of rest is Sunday, but then again, I can't guarantee that there won't be any posts on Sunday regarding Gi-Une, so be sure to keep your eye out on all those social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So gin, as I said before, is currently experiencing new heights of international popularity, and as such, we're going to be tasting products from different countries and, of course, talking about what they taste like, smell like, and how they differ from each other. All right, still with me? Okay, so let's dive in. First up is some history on gin. Anybody out there know how it all got started? Anybody? I'll give you 5-6 more seconds to think about it. Okay, time's up. If anybody said early Persia around 600 AD, then give yourself a hand, or a gin. For you see, that's where we believe that distillation started, and distillation is the process by which we make alcohol. So we have to go back to early Persia, 600 AD, and those early Persians were distilling perfumes predominantly. However, as the Moors moved throughout parts of modern Europe, monks, for the most part, learned those techniques and improvised with wine. And eventually, voila, alcohol was born. Now back to gin specifically. There's a bit of debate over which culture may have invented gin. Many experts believe it was the Flemish in the 13th century who created a spirit flavored with genever. And genever is the Dutch word for juniper. However, now my Italian friends are very quick to point out that when the Moors occupied Sicily in the 1100s, Benedictine monks in Salerno, Italy, used their recently gained knowledge of distillation to make alcohol as a preservation liquid for medicinal plants and included the native Italian juniper berry in that. There's apparently even an Italian recipe that dates back to around 1055, mentioning a tonic wine and juniper berries. So the debate rages on. Early alcohol for gin was infused with juniper with the intention of being medicinal. And they also infused some herbs, some botanicals, and such, and it was all meant to treat a range of ailments. Now, gin was believed to be a great diuretic and was used for kidney and liver ailments, and it was even used as a means to ward off the plague. For the record, even though I'm not a doctor and I don't even play one on Psalm for All videos, none of that worked. There is nothing to substantiate the thought that gin is medicinal. So, please, in these COVID-19 times, this is not how you're going to solve COVID-19. May make you forget about it for a few minutes, but that's a whole other story. Okay, so back to the history. By the early 1500s, grains now were being used in place of wine for that distillation in Genever, or in that juniper-infused alcohol. And it's thought that the Dutch did the best job of perfecting the recipe to produce a clean, really good, easy on the palate, better version of the Genever. And by the 1600s, the Dutch had well over 100 distilleries producing it, so they quickly became the experts at it. Speaking of the 1600s, the 30 Years' War plays a big part in gin's history, as British soldiers that were fighting on Dutch land at the time were given an extra, let's call it, giddy up, by way of ingesting liquid Dutch courage, gin, or Genever as it was called at the time. Proven to be popular with the soldiers, it quickly made its way to merry old England and continued to gain continued to gain popularity, with an estimated 25% of England's population at the time making their own gin. Soldiers continued to like it and use it, especially those in malaria-prone areas where consumption of anti-malaria quinine was common. Now, the quinine tasted very bitter, and the British soldiers, being the inventive folks that they were, quickly discovered that the addition of gin made for a much more pleasant taste, giving birth to the cocktail we know today as gin and tonic. Yep, good old G&T, right back to the 1600s. Okay, so after all this history, what is gin? Well, a quick and fast answer is it's a vodka infused with juniper. But a more accurate description is that gin is a neutral ethyl alcohol flavored with juniper and possible other things, but the predominant flavor for it to be called gin must be juniper, and the minimum alcohol by volume, or ABV, must be 37.5%. That's using the EU designation specifications, and pretty much everyone follows that those guidelines. So how is it made? Great question. Thanks for asking. The most common method is to use juniper, no shock there, and a mix of botanicals, and to steep them in a neutral alcohol spirit. Now, the length of time that you use for the steeping depends on the unique recipe for each producer. But let's roughly say it goes from maybe only a few hours of steeping to maybe as much as 48 hours. The liquid is then redistilled, and some producers are also using a different type of approach. They're using a basket type device. For you foodies out there, think maybe of a bouquet garni that's suspended, and they hang that away from the neutral spirit and only let the vapors of the distilling spirit pass through it. Thereby, there's actually no physical contact between the juniper and the botanicals and the alcohol itself. Some other producers choose to boil the botanicals. Some combine different methods, but you guys kind of get the gist of it. We're not going to dive too deep into that. Now, by the early 1960s, gin had started to fizzle out. The younger generation at the time were just not really drawn to it. But in 1999, Hendrick's Gin came out and is widely credited as rebooting gin and giving rise to the craft gin movement that was further then bolstered by the launch of a so-called premium tonic called Fever Tree in 2005. And I use air bunny quotes because A, I'm old, and B, premium, it's a very subjective term, but that's how they build it. And combined with Hendrick's Gin and other craft gins coming out, it started to gain some traction again as being very popular. All right, so there you have it. A good bit of background on the who, the what, the where of gin, but don't worry, there's still a ton of fun facts to share with you all during the month of June. Now tomorrow, the 2nd of June, I'll be doing a virtual tasting of an Italian gin. Mentioned a little earlier that Italy is thought to be the birthplace of gin. Debatable, but we're going to dive in with an Italian gin. The video for that virtual tasting will be available on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube. And on my Instagram account, I'll have some tasting notes, a photo of the bottle that's being tasted, of course, and I'll also put a temporary link to the video in my bio. So if you click on the bio in Instagram, you'll find the link, and that link will take you to the video. But it's only temporary. So, June the 1st, thank you again for joining me. Don't forget to like, very important, like and follow Psalm for All across all those social media platforms, as well as share all the aspects of Gi-Une with your family and friends, and of course the links to at Psalm for All. Send me your questions throughout the week that I'll be answering live during my happy hour cocktail. And watch for details on the first live Psalm for All happy hour cocktail. I'm going to have to come up with a better name for it than that. But it will be taking place this Friday, June the 5th. Exact time, I'm still trying to figure that out. So keep watching for details on that. Thank you again for tuning in. Happy June, everyone. And cheers from Psalm for All.